Los Angeles was burning not in flames, but in fear, betrayal, and a tightening web of desperation. Sheila Carter had returned to her most dangerous form, and this time, she wasn't playing games. Her actions weren't just malicious, they were surgical, calculated, devastating. In one swift, brutal move, she had kidnapped the two most precious lives in the Forrester-Logan Spencer orbit, Kelly Spencer and Beth Logan. 2 children. 2 symbols of family unity. Gone, without a trace. And the message she left behind shattered the fragile peace between the warring houses. Her voice came through a distorted phone call, her demands clear and merciless. Rich Forrester was to sign over every share he personally held in Forrester Creations, all control, all voting power, all legacy. Once that was done, Sheila would walk away, quietly, forever. She would leave the country, disappear from American soil for good. But if he refused, or stalled, or involved law enforcement beyond the perimeter she dictated, Kelly and Beth would be trafficked across the border. Gone. For good. The world stopped. The Forresters collapsed into chaos. Steffi's scream could be heard from outside the walls of the Cliff House. Hope fell to the floor, her knees giving out as Liam tried to hold her. But even he was barely standing. Brooke couldn't speak. Donna sobbed. Ridge punched a hole in the wall. Blood streaming from his hand, and still no one could think clearly enough to respond. Sheila Carter had crossed every imaginable line. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't revenge. This was war. And at the center of it was an impossible decision, Ridge's power for the lives of 2 innocent children. No time to negotiate. No room to maneuver. Sheila had timed it all perfectly. As panic spread through the families and the authorities were secretly, cautiously looped in under the radar, 2 women, Steffy and Hope, did the unthinkable. They joined forces. These were not allies. These were not friends. These were former enemies bonded only by shared pain, shared rage, and the unbearable threat to their daughters. For the first time in years, they moved as one. Hope reached out to Deacon. She knew he had once been close to Sheila. Too close. She hoped, prayed he might know something, anything. An old safe house. A contact. A pattern. Deacon didn't want to get involved. At least not at first. But when he heard the full story, when he saw the raw fear in Hope's eyes, his mask cracked. Then came the memory. A fire. Years ago. Back when he was broke, drinking too much, sleeping behind a dive bar near Boyle Heights. Someone had set the building ablaze, he never knew who. Smoke, panic, pain. And then her. Sheila. Out of nowhere. Dragging him through smoke-choked corridors. Coughing. Bleeding. Saving his life. She had never mentioned it again. And now Deacon understood why. She was banking the debt. It was poison in his throat. He owed her. His heart warred against itself. But Hope was his daughter. Beth was his granddaughter. And Sheila, whatever she had done for him, was now threatening everything he loved. Still, the conflict within him paralyzed him. Loyalty twisted with guilt. Debt twisted with decency. Meanwhile, Steffi was tearing Los Angeles apart. With no regard for protocol, she called in every contact, every favor. From shady club owners in the valley to ex-military men her family had once supported through charity foundations, she was relentless. Ridge was too consumed with whether to sign the papers. Thomas was losing his grip. But Steffi didn't hesitate. She went underground, into the tunnels, the forgotten corners of LA where Sheila might hide children without a trace. Hope wasn't far behind. Despite their differences, the 2 women became a blur of movement. Information came from all angles. The LAPD, powerless and legally constrained, could only advise from a distance. Carter helped coordinate encrypted communications. Zend provided vehicle trace data from Forrester GPS logs. Even Bill Spencer offered assistance. quietly activating his private surveillance networks. Still, Sheila stayed one step ahead. Her calls came at random intervals, always through burner phones, always masked. Her tone never changed, calm. Cruel, confident. "Tick-tock," she would whisper. "Tick-tock, Ridge. You love your empire. But do you love your granddaughters more?" Each hour that passed tightened the noose. Ridge was cracking. Eric, out of the hospital and still weakened from his ordeal, pleaded with his son to not hand over the company. But Brooke said nothing. She watched Ridge spiral, and she knew he was going to do it. And yet, across the city, Deacon was spiraling in his own private hell. He knew where Sheila had taken them. Not exactly. Not down to the address. But close. A safe house in the sewer grid beneath South Alameda Street. Sheila had used it once before. There was an access tunnel beneath an abandoned shipping yard, rarely monitored. He remembered the stories she told him, drunk with power and nostalgia. He never imagined they were real. But now he had a choice. Tell Ridge and endanger the girls if Sheila caught wind? Or go himself and risk being complicit? In the end, he made the only choice a father could. He called Hope, told her what he knew, begged her to trust him. And together, with Steffy, they made a plan. No police. No Forrester security. Just the three of them. They drove deep into South Los Angeles. At midnight. With weapons. Hope held a taser. Steffy carried a small-caliber pistol, one she hadn't touched since before the Monaco incident. Deacon led them, flashlight in hand, breathing like a man already halfway to hell. They descended through rusted grates and broken stairwells into the guts of the city. The air was rancid, the silence absolute. They found the gate. It was unlocked. Inside, a hallway. Then a room. Then a scream. Beth. Hope ran first. Through crates. Through darkness. Kelly's voice called from behind a locked door. Sheila was there. Holding a gun. Calm. Smiling. Her finger tightening around the trigger. And then she saw Deacon. Everything stopped. She hesitated. Just for a second. That was all Steffy needed. One shot. The gun hit the ground. Sheila's hand cracked against the wall. Hope tackled her. Deacon grabbed the gun. Steffy got the keys. The girls were safe. The police arrived 6 minutes later. Sheila didn't fight. She didn't cry. She looked at Deacon once and simply said, "You broke the debt." He nodded, silent. She was taken away in cuffs. No bail. No plea deal. This time, it was over. Back at home. Ridge held Beth and Kelly in his arms as Hope and Steffy stood together, bloodied, shaking, but victorious. Ridge never signed the shares. Forrester Creations remained whole. But something else had changed forever. The alliance between Steffy and Hope, once built on necessity, was now forged in something deeper. Something unbreakable. And Deacon, standing at the edge of their living room, realized he was no longer the man who owed Sheila Carter anything. He was the man who helped end her reign. But he would never forget how close he came to losing everything, and how far a father's love could go to get it back. The aftermath wasn't quiet. It couldn't be. Sheila Carter's capture dominated every headline across Los Angeles. Infamous fugitive arrested in underground child abduction plot, Forrester heirs rescued. News vans parked outside the Forrester estate for days. Photographers hounded Deacon outside Il Giardino. Brooke couldn't step outside without reporters screaming questions about Ridge, about Hope, about Sheila. It was a victory, yes, but a messy, public one that left no one untouched. Beth and Kelly were safe, but they were changed. They didn't understand everything, but they understood enough to wake up screaming, to clutch their mothers and ask if the bad lady would come back. Hope and Steffy took turns sleeping beside them. There was no other option. The girls' innocence had been scorched, and rebuilding it would take time neither woman had. Ridge, meanwhile, faced the silent reckoning of guilt. He had almost handed over his life's work, almost bartered the legacy of generations for the lives of his granddaughters. And though he'd made the right call in the end, he couldn't escape the feeling that he'd failed. He became erratic at the office, barking orders, canceling meetings, firing 2 junior designers on the spot for arriving late. Eric intervened. Thomas and Steffy cornered him, but Ridge only had one focus. No one would ever threaten their family like that again. Brooke watched him from a distance, afraid to get too close. Their marriage had been on ice since the scandal with Deacon and the baby. Now it felt like a glacier. Celeste was growing, strong and beautiful, but Ridge had barely looked at her since Sheila's ultimatum. Brooke wanted to believe that time would thaw things. But time, in their world, didn't always heal. Sometimes it just hardened what was already cracked. And then there was Deacon. He returned to Il Giardino as if nothing had happened. But something had. Inside, he was split. The guilt over what Sheila did burned deep. He'd once loved her, once defended her, once believed she could be saved. Now he'd helped put her away. But even in chains, she haunted him. She'd whispered something when the police dragged her off. Something only he had heard. "She's not the last." That phrase repeated in his mind every night. He tried to dismiss it. Told himself it was just another manipulation. But it gnawed at him. What did she mean? Hope noticed. Her father was quieter, heavier. He doted on Beth with a devotion that bordered on manic. He replaced every lock on their home. Installed 3 security systems. Bought a guard dog. He even tried to hire private security to trail Steffy and Kelly. When Hope pushed back, he exploded. "I'm not losing anyone again," he shouted. That was the first crack. The second came when Carter, now fully reintegrated at Forrester and cautiously circling Hope again, discovered Deacon going through Ridge's office after hours. Alone. Silent. Looking for something. Carter confronted him. "What are you doing?" Deacon didn't lie. "Sheila said she's not the last. I think there's someone else." It sounded insane, but this was LA, and this was the bold and the beautiful. Insanity had receipts. Hope demanded answers. So Deacon told them everything: the fire, the rescue, the debt. How long he'd known Sheila had an underground network. How she had mentioned others. Hidden resources. Names she never gave. Codes she never shared. But he remembered a phrase: Project Gemini. The name meant nothing. Until it did. Liam, recovered from his brain surgery and finally thinking clearly, remembered something from months ago. During his hallucinations, he'd seen a flash of a tattoo on Sheila's shoulder. Twin faces. A symbol. He thought it was just a product of his delusions. But now Gemini. Twins. Steffi pulled up Sheila's arrest files. In one photo, barely visible on her shoulder blade, was the tattoo. 2 mirrored faces. Identical. One smiling. One frowning. It wasn't just a tattoo. It was a symbol of something bigger. Hope and Deacon went back to Sheila's hideout with the LAPD. Most of it had been cleared. But behind a loose panel in the wall, they found a small safe. Inside, paperwork. Maps. Names. One file stood out. A sealed envelope marked only with the words, SH, Phase 2. The initials chilled Deacon to the core. He opened it. Inside was a birth certificate. A girl. Born in Nevada. Date of birth, identical to Sheila's. Twin sister. Unknown to the world. Name, Sabrina Harris. And one photo. Black and white. Grainy, but unmistakably familiar. Same eyes. Same smirk. Same madness. Hope dropped the file. Sabrina Harris was real. Sheila Carter wasn't working alone. She never had been. And across the border, in an undisclosed location marked on a faded map, a woman stood in front of a mirror, tracing a line of lipstick across her smile. She turned to a man behind her. They never expected two of us." The man nodded. She lit a match, and the fire started again.